Um, but welcome to the race. This is Wings of V. I'm not sure exactly what's happening right now. Ziggy's has started his timer. However, his mouse cursor is on the screen. I'm not really sure what the deal with that is. Okay, looks like he is deleting his game. He is getting his mouse cursor off of the screen, and there we go. All right, so here we are. Oh, nope, his mouse cursor is still on the screen. Okay, so here we go. The race has begun, and first things first, we got to talk about the outfits. CakeSauc3 is looking lovely today in the pigtails accessory. He is rocking Amethyst's wings, the nice golden floaty wing things. He's got the cat's tail, and is really deciding to show some skin today in Azrael's outfit. So looking good, looking good. Ziggy on the right side, he's got pink skin. So looking absolutely fabulous in the pink skin. Also looks like some reading glasses as well. Wants everybody to know that he's got the bronze and the brains for this race. It's a little chilly up in the floating keep today, so he's also got the nice red scarf on that complements his pink skin quite well as the pink ruby dress that he is wearing. So, and of course, to top it all off, the nice, modest Ira wings. Both players looking excellent. So here we are in the floating keep. This is Wings of V. It's made by Solgren. This is a very difficult precision platformer video game with lots of precision platforming, but also some high precision, high-octane combat that all comes together for just one heck of a video game. And so let's talk about the controls for a second. The one thing that this game does immediately upon starting, the thing that you'll notice about the platforming, and that the game teaches you right away, is that in this game you can essentially Diddy Kong jump. And if you don't know what that means, it means that you can run off of a platform and still jump out of midair. You get one jump per landing, as opposed to one jump per being on the ground. And so that makes for some really interesting platforming right away. However, both players have now also picked up a flutter mechanic, which the flutter is like a double jump, but it's more like Yoshi's double jump, you know, where he just kind of... I can't explain what Yoshi does without making the noise, so you guys know what I'm talking about. And so they're making it through the floating keep. The interesting thing about the floating keep are these portals where you have to defeat enemies in order to lower the health of the portals. And so the players kind of manipulate spawns by leaving and coming back to get it to spawn the first wave twice, which makes you kind of pick and choose which enemies you want to kill on the last wave, which is nice because those charers or materializers, they can kind of troll you by just kind of teleporting around wherever they want. Ooh, CakeSauc3 actually gets an extra phase on the Miyogi fight. Okay, so both players are fighting Miyogi now. How this fight works is she doesn't attack, and then she lowers her shield, so she's invulnerable during flutters. I'm sorry, I was thinking about flutters again. She's invulnerable during her attacks, and then she drops her shield between attacks, allowing you to hit her once. So the players will use Sloth because even though that weapon has relatively low DPS, it hits very hard when it actually does hit. And so since it does the most burst damage in the game, it's very useful for that boss where you can only hit her once at a time. And you can get through the fight in 3 phases. However, CakeSauc3 kind of screwed up one of the hits and didn't get every point of damage in that he could have, and actually had to wait through a 4th attack from her, which that got Ziggy a little bit of extra ground right there. So now both players have the slide mechanic. Sliding is faster than running, so that is going to be the optimal, you know, form of locomotion that you'll see whenever it's viable. But it's also good for, you know, getting through tight places, and also it is good for getting a little burst of speed off of a platform to get you a little bit of extra distance. And that can happen. That can be very important. And so now the platforming kicks up a little bit, because now you've got these whole like obstacle courses where you got to slide left and slide right and then flutter and then jump and then slide and then drop off of a ledge and jump at the last moment. Like you really got to plan ahead and execute just a whole course in one go. So very nice kind of tutorial area for what's to come. Your first playthrough, though, it might not feel like a tutorial just because of how difficult it can be at first, but we're just getting started. So CakeSauc and Ziggy are both now fighting Pergora. Pergora is a really, really nice display of a lot of the different weapons and how they can all be useful. They're going to start off with Envy. It has slightly more DPS than the... Oh, Ziggy got great RNG. He might actually be able to beat the boss right here, except he didn't quite get optimal damage on him. If he does that hover attack, you can actually kill him right there. But Ziggy didn't lose too much time there. The boss came down and he just finished him off. But it is possible to kill him right on that attack if you're just right. So then the next part of the game is Falling, which is a section where you fly around and defeat some robots. However, it's very random. And we found a way to skip this portion by loading another save file that has double jump, and then coming back to this one. Since it's the only mid-air checkpoint in the game, it's the only time that it becomes relevant where the game doesn't know to take away your double jump upon loading the file, and you can actually just double jump over the trigger that begins that section. Which is good because, again, that spot's very random, and it made it wasn't super great in a speed run, but it is a fun part of the game. And so now, CakeSauc has double jump, and Ziggy is on his way to collect double jump as well. And here's where we will see some skipping of checkpoints here. And when I say skip, I don't mean that they are actually like skipping a portion of the game. What I mean is that they are electing to forego a checkpoint, I guess is a better way to say it. And by doing that, after you fight Electram, you have to backtrack through some spots. And it's a lot faster to instead forego these two checkpoints, and then after you defeat the boss, you can just death warp back to the last checkpoint that you hit. And then that saves, 20 to 30 seconds of backtracking. However, the really risky thing is that if Electram kills you, well, that means you just skipped your last two checkpoints and you have to redo a bunch of platforming, and you end up losing more time than you would have gained. So it's a little risky. However, these are very practiced speedrunners here. These guys, they've fought Electram a time or two, and they should be able to confidently take him down. And CakeSauc gets through. He is now about to pick up a new mechanic as well, the Orbs of Purity. So he now has a ranged attack, Ziggy finishing off Electram as well. Now, one little thing that I didn't really talk about with the bosses is that both bosses did a special thing at 40% health. When Pergora got to 40% health, he came down and did an enrage where he was basically just became a more difficult boss. Electram, on the other hand, at 40% health, decided to go invulnerable for a period of time and launch a string of attacks that you need to dodge before returning to the boss to finish him off. And those are two different types of enrages that will come into play later. Pretty much every boss has some form of enrage in this game. And it's very, very interesting to see how they all differ. So, now the players, they've got it all going on. They've got jump, they've got flutter, they've got double jump, they've got sliding, they've got ranged orbs. It's all happening now. And they're coming into one of the really most critical spots of the run. Oh, and CakeSauc actually missed it. So I think Ziggy might have missed it too. Either that or he just caught up. And because I was watching Cake there. So this is a damage boost where the Veil 2 section, you're supposed to go right here and go all the way around and come up down from the top. However, if you damage boost off of that spike strip, you can just jump straight up here and get to nearly the end of Veil 2. It's really risky, though, because of how much damage it takes to from those spikies to get up here. I think CakeSauc actually damage boosted off of a bug, which was really nice. But there's just a lot of platforming here that you're supposed to have a checkpoint for, and you're supposed to have more health for. But they both nailed it. Ziggy also nailed the Troll Cave skip. Meanwhile, CakeSauc is actually deciding to just do the Troll Cave. I guess he's decided that the Troll Cave skip might be a little bit too inconsistent for him, and he's gonna just jam through the Troll Cave as intended. So it's really interesting. There are some skips in this game that maybe in a race don't actually skip enough time to be worth the amount of time that it might take to actually sit there and jam it. So both players are now fighting Amethyst. The big deal about Amethyst is that you can only do so much damage to her per phase. You can do 16 points of damage to her per phase, and then each phase she chooses an element and she attacks you with it. So as long as you see that red shield on her per phase, the player is doing the battle as quickly as they can. Now, her health is not an actual multiple of 16, though, which means that you can lose a few points of damage without actually having to do an entire other phase. I don't know exactly how many hit points that is, though, but it's kind of like frame rules in Super Mario Bros. For the NES, where, like, you can lose a couple frames, but because the game uses frame rules and only switches levels every 21 frames, as long as you didn't lose so many frames to get on the next frame rule, you don't actually lose any time. It's kind of like that. And Ziggy takes down Amethyst with little to no problems. CakeSauc making short work of her as well. It looks like the next phase she will be taken out, and boom, there we go. Now, I'm not sure if Ziggy did it, but Cake actually forewent the checkpoint that was in front of Amethyst, which saved him some backtracking as well. So just like the Electram skip, but a little bit less extreme, you can skip the checkpoint in front of Amethyst, and then after you defeat her, when you death warp, you go back further, closer to the village instead of having to backtrack more. Now, Sinister Grotto is where we are also going to see the players forgoing some checkpoints, and again, they're not, when I say skip, they're not skipping portions of the game, they're just deciding not to take checkpoints. In this case, not because there's backtracking that they're skipping, but it's because some of the checkpoints in this area are just kind of out of the way, and having to go out of the way to hit those checkpoints will throw them off of the cycles that they're expecting. So Sinister Grotto is just a really, really fun area with some really great music, and it's super fun to watch every time just because of how well the players flow through it. And can we just talk about how close they are, too? We're 13 minutes into the run, and the players are less than 10 seconds apart. This is crazy good. Oh, yeah, Ziggy nailed that that spike, or that switch, I mean, at just the last moment. Here comes CakeSauc. Beautiful. And now we'll see the second secret that they're both collecting. Here's a little shortcut in the game. This is the only secret in the game that's actually not out of the way. Most of the little treasure chests for cosmetic items that you find are hidden out of the way. That one is hidden within a shortcut, so we actually see that one in a speedrun, which is fun. Here's some tricky platforming through some mines. Ziggy took one mine. Cake actually purposely tanked a mine to save a little bit of time, and then they skipped this checkpoint because it's too out of the way, and it's generally pretty easy to get through this next part without dying. And then also, so Ziggy took the save in front of the Dark Annihilator to refill his health. Cake did not. So Cake is actually on this boss with half health. However, even though I think all of the bosses in this game are difficult, for speedrunners, it gets a little bit different. The difficulty of the bosses in a speedrun perspective are a little skewed. Dark Annihilator is definitely one of the easier bosses. So going into the fight with half health shouldn't be super clench, but some crazy things have happened. And the enrage phase of this boss gets pretty nuts with the multitasking. So once this boss gets down to 40% health, just like just like Pergora and Electram, he is going to charge up and start just going absolutely bonkers. And you'll see these missiles coming in from the right side. If the players do not destroy these missiles, they actually heal the boss, which is not only slow, because that's more damage than that you have to deal to the boss, but the boss is walking forward throughout this room. And as the boss walks forward throughout this room, the room ends, and you will actually get pinned to the wall and die if you don't do enough damage or if you get healed. Or if you let him heal too much. But both players are on to the next portion. Here comes an interesting property where it turns out that there's a couple switches in this game that you can shoot from unintended locations. Okay, so Cake is actually skipping, or deciding not to take that one checkpoint. Okay, Ziggy took the yellow checkpoint, Cake did not, and then neither players took this checkpoint because that one is especially out of the way. So that's actually going to make up a little bit of time for Cake that he skipped an extra checkpoint, assuming that neither players die here. Wow, this is close. Oh my gosh. They are within 5 seconds of each other. But yeah, that is a perfect example of a checkpoint where they disregard that checkpoint because they're confident that they're going to be able to make it through without dying. And also, if they do just go straight in without taking a checkpoint, that allows them to know what cycle they're on. Going down and taking that checkpoint kind of throws that off a little bit, and they'll have to wait even longer once they get down to the minecart to make sure that they're on the right cycle. All right, so we're getting into the drive-by checkpoint. We'll see if either player goes for drive-by, but I think that is swag that is best reserved for a race that is not this close. But we'll see what happens. They take down the bat, of course, so that stops harassing them. And here we go. We just got some Terravine spawns. Ziggy takes one extra little safety hit on the switch there. Oh my gosh, they are lined up perfectly now. Whoa! And here we go into the Terravine fight. So, I haven't really talked about weapons. The weapon that we're seeing showcased here is Greed. Greed has the highest DPS in the game. But because of the way that this boss kind of bobs left and right, it can be a little tricky to use Greed because it's so low range. You need to know exactly how the boss moves, and you need to get in there for damage right when you can, but also not take too much damage. So Greed is, I mean, it's the perfect name for the weapon because it's high damage, but high risk as well. But this boss has a mechanic where he does this giant face laser every few attacks, which one-shot kills you, and you have to interrupt him with a minecart. Solgren very generously gives you 3 minecarts, however, speedrunners know how to really tank certain attacks and really get in that damage. So they'll actually send all 3 minecarts at him right away for the extra damage that they get, and then just finish the boss before he gets to his second face laser anyway. And ba-boom! Both players are on the underworld. This is a really fun checkpoint. Just pay close attention to, oh, Ziggy cutscene glitched. Or I think that's what happened. There's a really funny thing to the cutscenes in this game where if you try to skip them on like the first frame that text is being written or something weird like that, you have to watch the cutscene. The skip doesn't work or something weird like that. I don't know exactly how it works, but that happened. Whatever it was, it happened to Ziggy. So that puts him a little bit behind. Now we have the last, right, frame perfect mistake is a good way to put it. So now we have both players in the underworld. Cake is on the last portal that's in the game. Again, it's just the same as before, where defeating enemies is what destroys these portals. However, the enemies in this portal are a lot less, are a lot more difficult, generally. Just like the combat here is a lot trickier. You have to fight Skelemen, which can be really trolly if you don't get them right away. However, Ziggy got a beautiful 6 damage on that Skeleman before he went away, so we only had to shoot him with 1 orb. That's perfect. Second Skeleman. Oh! Beautiful! Just nails them both with Greed. Absolutely fantastic. So he got through that portal really, really quickly. Probably made up some of the ground that Cake has on him now. and moving on to the next checkpoint. So after that portal, both players now have the dash mechanic. When they pick up these dash wings, the next time that they hit the flutter key, they'll get this short burst of speed that is 8 directional. So whatever of the 8 directions that they're holding, they'll get a burst of speed in that direction, and we will see that mechanic used a lot in the platforming to come. Right there was an even special version of it where it was a wing with a little 4 on it, which means that you get 4 of them. Ho, ho, ho. And now, Cake is getting onto the Craterack boss fight. Meanwhile, Ziggy is navigating through more obstacle courses with the new dash mechanic. And let's see if Ziggy gets this cool trick here. Oh, he nailed it! Okay, so fog gates in this game like to keep the player held in until all of the enemies on screen are dead, except if the enemies are just off screen, it's just as good. And on that part, you can really specifically kill both of the fire guys right in a row. Like, if you get down there and just perfectly ba-boom, ba-boom, hit both of those fire guys, then the Skeleman goes off the right side of the screen, because that's just how his AI works, and immediately you can slide out of that room without killing him. It is gorgeous. So now both players are fighting Craterack. As you can see, what Craterack likes to do is chase you horizontally, then he chases you vertically, and this goes on for like, I don't know, 32 phases or something until the game freaks out and kills you. However, what you'll see in a speed run is very, very, very optimally and rarely, so you should not expect it, you'll see him kill him in a 2 cycle, which is where you kill him during the downward first vertical phase. However, most of the time you'll see them finish him off right here when it starts going left! Because at first, it's so nuts when you first do this boss. At first, you're going to the right, then he goes downward, and then you're going back and you're like, oh, just get back to horizontal for once. But then you go back to horizontal and it's going left and everything's reversed, and you just... Yeah, it's very confusing. But both players did not get confused, because they're used to this stuff at this point. And they move on to the next section of the game where you have to collect these 3 keys. So now, to get to the next portion, you have to collect these 3 keys, right? Boom. And it's a fork in the road. You got 3 of them. Each one is like really cleverly designed where you have to go one way in order to grab a key. Then you have to go the other way to get the other key. Cake just did a really sweet trick right there that I don't even know how to explain. And then you have to go backwards to get back to the fork. However, you'll notice that the players are skipping the checkpoints when they're actually getting the keys. That way they can just death warp back to the fork in the road without having to do the very well-designed backwards portion of the level. Cake's got his 3 keys. I think Ziggy's working on his last key right now. And after the 3 keys, there's one more key you gotta grab. Cake will grab that checkpoint on the way to the key for a very good reason that we get to get into now. There was also the chase scene that happened. The chase scene is really sweet. Ziggy's getting to it right now. Where you have to use all of your skills that you have gotten in the dashing with the wings in order to escape this Craterack spawn and have just barely enough time. Okay, so CakeSauc is going to damage boost over ancient constructs. There, that's what happened. So Ziggy is about to take this next checkpoint now as well. The reason that they're taking this checkpoint on the way to the key is very specific, and I'll get into it this time. It is because after grabbing this key, they want to lure the conving over to the ancient constructs and not take the checkpoint that's on the way to them, because if you haven't noticed yet, taking checkpoints actually kills all of the enemies that are on screen at that time. And so Ziggy will maneuver around this conving, bring him over to the boss arena without taking the checkpoint, and then damage boost off of the conving straight into the boss, but with enough height to just clear right over that trigger and skip that entire boss. So that's one of the most significant skips in the game. Speaking of significant skips, this is a real skippy part of the game. Cake is doing library skip now. He actually just nailed it. Where, well, I guess I'll talk about it when Ziggy gets to it. Cake is now doing the second portion of the library. Or, well, wait a second. Am I confusing myself? you don't skip the whole library. You skip the first half of the library. That's what's happening. Anyway, Ziggy's gonna do it now. First, he damage boosts up there because it's just a little bit faster. You go through this door for that loads the new area, which is the library, so that gets you all of your health back. And then you're supposed to use that flutter, that dash, to go up and right, but instead he went up and left and actually jumped up to where the camera wasn't even showing him, skipping a pretty significant part of platforming. Now both players are on the good old elevator. This is the most difficult auto-scroller of the game. So you just got to ride this elevator upward. Meanwhile, it is just precise jump after precise jump. Here you have to go, I'm looking at Ziggy, you have to go right there because on the left side, a brute is looking at you no matter what, but on the right side, you can sneak past him. So it's a little, you know, it's one part Metal Gear Solid, one part precision platforming, one part bullet hell shooter, and what do you got at top? 2 Skelemen! Not 1, but 2! And so, Cake is going to use that trick that I was talking about earlier, where you manipulate them into going off-screen, sorry, in order to get that fog gate to go away. And you can manipulate both of the Skelemen to go off screen, but it's a little bit safer to kill one of them because otherwise they can just kind of RNG fun you and get you stuck in the fog gate. And then you have to redo the entire auto-scroller section, which is a nightmare. So now Ziggy is just going to make his way through some grabby hands and make his way over to Myogi 2, which Cake is fighting currently. Very interesting thing to this boss. Remember how when Electram enraged at 40% health, he went into this long, invulnerable state where he just attacked you for 40 seconds? Well, Myogi actually does the same thing, but you can skip hers because she also has this mechanic where every 8 times that you hit her, you stun her. And you can actually stun her, getting her... Oh, Cake actually failed it! So now Cake gets to do this entire 40-second attack that just takes forever. So hers, if you stun her right at the moment where she wants to begin this attack, you will actually stun her out of it and completely skip it. And it's a huge deal, as you can see on Cake's screen. Why? Now, it's not just that simple. The only reason that we can stun her during when she wants to enrage is because she also has this other mechanic where every time that you... Oh! Ziggy actually failed it as well! So this continues to be super, super close. Okay, so... the other mechanic to this fight is that you'll notice that the players are hitting her with like a rhythm. And the reason is that every time that you hit her, she puts up a little shield. And if you hit her while she's shielded, you will actually heal her. And that is what enables that skip, because you actually heal her intentionally enough times to line her health up just right so that you stun her at just the moment where she tries to enrage because of the amount of health that she has. Okay, so... Cake clutches it out, makes it through the fight. The other thing that is bad about missing the enrage skip is that after the enrage, Myogi summons this skull that harasses you for the rest of the fight, and you have to bat it away with your orbs. It doesn't even respond to melee attacks. You have to hit it away with orbs, and it just constant. If that thing hits you, it sets you on fire and does like 25 damage or something. It's just, oh, it's terrible. Okay, so CakeSauc is now making his way to the chambers. Ziggy is actually making his way to the chambers as well. And now that... Oh, Cake actually took a pretty costly death right there. These little bugs do 30 damage to you, which is quite a bit. And if you hit the bug mothers, they do 35 damage to you. Really, really weird enemies. I mean, I would say that this is probably like the weirdest checkpoint of the game, because you've got these weird brood mothers that shoot out these bugs constantly that like seem to tear out of them based on the look of them and the bloodiness. And then when you kill them, they be hang. Oh! Cake nails the password. All right, it's gonna be tough for Ziggy to keep up with that. So they start on fire. So right after you kill them, you can't run through them right away. They're kind of like the rock throwing wenches, where they start on fire and you can't run through them. But then after they do start on fire, or after the fire is over, you only have a moment to run through them, and before they spawn a black hole, which just instant kills you. So that's really weird. Okay, hang on. Oh. All right. I am getting special, exclusive information from the game developer himself that those enemies are called maggots and maggot queens, not brood mothers and bugs or whatever stupid thing I was calling them. So that's exciting. Cake is now in the chambers after inputting the password. Ziggy nailed the password as well. They are now both in the chambers. Chambers have this weird thing to them now where they don't actually start. When you first get in here, it's really like intense because it's quiet. And then after you die the first time, the music bumps in. I'm serious. The music bumps. But because these are speedrunners who are very good at getting through the chambers without dying, we're not going to be able to bump for a short amount of time here. Until we get to the Twin Orcs, then the bumping can resume. So Chambers is probably my favorite platforming section of the game. Just like lots of precise jumps, lots of spikes. It's got these fun, kind of like, remember in Link's Awakening when there's those switches that like alternate the pegs that tell you where you can go and stuff? It's kind of like that. There's these switches that alternate the spikes that you need to use to get through. So pretty cool. Now, I noticed, I think Cake did the pacifist strat on the skeletons, which Ziggy actually just did as well. Very cool strat there. Again, it has to do with the way that you manipulate Skelemen into going off the screen for the fog banks. Or fog walls. Anyway, we're on to the Twin Orcs now. That's old news. The Twin Orcs is a beautiful fight of just a dance with these two lovely orc ladies. However, these speedrunners are going to do a dance of their own called the Twin Orcs Quick Kill, where instead of the usual strat where you have to stand where you want the orcs to jump to and use your positioning to kite the orcs around in a way where you can dodge their attacks and deal damage to them, instead they're just going to drop off the side of the platform and just deal a ton of damage off the side of the platform and just never stop dealing damage to these orcs. The tricky thing also, besides just how difficult it is to drop off the platform and not die while also maintaining damage the entire time, is that you have to kill both the orcs at the exact same time. And if you don't do all of the damage right away, they begin one of 3 random enrage attacks, and one of those random enrage attacks they actually turn invulnerable for, and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble if you didn't do everything exactly correctly. So now both players are in the Path of Decay. For the record, this part of the game has the best song in the soundtrack, and this part is where the platforming gets the most difficult, as you'd expect. I mean, it's a game with a proper difficulty curve, okay? So every time that they get into the next platforming section, it's the hardest yet. This is the last platforming section, besides a little bit at the end, and so as you'd expect, it is the most difficult platforming section. The new mechanic here are these hearts that you have to touch a certain number of times before they... the heart is keeping up a barrier, and they have to touch it so many times. And the thing that makes it difficult is that they're usually surrounded by crumbly platforms, and you only have so many crumbly platforms in order to touch the heart as many times as you're being asked to. Very well represented by where Ziggy is right now. You only have so many crumblies, and you have to hit the heart so many times. So there you go. And then there's also these Super Mario World-inspired bone snakes. I asked Solgren, I said, is this Battletoads? Is this the snake pit from Battletoads? And he said, no, it's the castle from Super Mario World. But also with the added heart mechanic, though, Cake is doing a super swag strategy, which skips a couple seconds of waiting around. Very, very cool. Meanwhile, Ziggy is on the... Oh! Rough death right there. Not a huge time loss, honestly, but... it's just a rough time to die on the climb. This is notoriously the most difficult checkpoint in the game, particularly on a blind run. some blind playthroughs have been known to spend days on this checkpoint. Just because you only have so many crumblies to climb up the entire place with, and there's all these enemies that you got to fight, and there's a fog bank at the end, and then afterward there's all these enemies. It's nuts. All right, so Cake actually, after doing all the bone snakes, then got to the next platforming movement mechanic in the game, which is the space meatball. Ziggy will pick it up in a moment. Cake is actually done using it. I neglected to talk about it until after he was done using it, except for the boss fight. Spoilers, there's a boss fight coming up. But Ziggy's about to pick it up as well. Okay, so Cake is now on Azrael. Azrael is just the queen of multitasking. There's a lot going on in this fight. First of all, every time that you hit her, she starts to charge up a shield, which dies down after a little while. If you hit her too much, the shield turns red, just like it just did, and she is now invulnerable. So if you hit her too much, her shield turns red, she becomes invulnerable. Put that on hold for a second. Ziggy now has Space Meatball. As you can see how that works, if you hold down Flutter, you get just basically free flight for a short period of time until your meatball runs out of gas. You have to re-gas on these like demon aura geysers that you see around. And then you have to combine that with the hearts that you have to hit a certain number of times in order to break down the barriers, and you've got yourself some fun, challenging platforming. Now, the other thing about Azrael is that she also likes to drop all these platforms around as you have to hit these green souls that are floating around that drop straight down when you touch them, and they will raise the platforms back up. She also spawns these portals that grow in size indefinitely over the fight, and so you just got to take care of those if they're in your business. Cake beautifully makes it through the Azrael fight, and Ziggy is on his way, is on the Azrael fight as well. On top of that, she likes to spawn these rings of red shards around you. How those work is that they have gaps in them, and so you need to usually go into demon form and move toward the gap, and they close in when you hit the attack key. So you need to move towards the gap, whether it's in demon form or not, and hit the attack key in order to get them to close in without hitting you. On top of that, she just shoots stuff at you, and it's hard to dodge. Okay, so Cake is in the heart of the Baneful. Sharktooth, oh, he took it pretty quickly there. The Heart of the Baneful is the last little bit of platforming in the game before we get to the final boss. And so, here we go. It's Jeul from the beginning of the game. I don't know if you guys actually saw Jeul because the cutscene gets skipped, but how he works is he's got this yellow meter that fills up, and you get filled up by... He's got this skull that harasses you the entire fight, and if that touches you, it fills up your yellow meter a little bit. There's also a cloud of yellow on top, and if you touch these things, you get more meter. The higher that the yellow meter goes, the faster the boss goes, and the more damage that he deals. So you want to not touch those things while you dodge his other attacks, and also, when he does that specific attack of summoning spikes, you want to knock him out of the ground and then shoot them back at him. Headshots do bonus damage, and it's very difficult, but as far as the speed run goes, I would say that's actually probably the easiest boss in a speed run, because a lot of his attacks just don't really do damage to you. You're trying to not fill up the yellow meter, but as far as actually damaging you, he doesn't have a ton that he does unless you let the yellow get up too high. Then he kind of starts moving a little bit too quickly, and it becomes rather difficult. Ziggy on his way to Jeul as well, but just kidding with Jeul being the last boss. Now Cake is on to Supreme Jeul. This is his true form, and there is a lot going on in this fight. Firstly, Jeul is so evil that just being around him burns your angel flesh. And so you are constantly taking damage during this fight, only to be mitigated by Fiola the Green Fairy's health orbs. So you need to basically follow her around on the fight and collect these health orbs. However, that stacks really, really nicely with the fact that Joel moves around the fight from the left side to the middle to the right side, and you need to constantly know where he is and where he's going, and you need to be looking at him to know what attacks he's doing so that you don't get killed by them, which is very difficult to do when you need to be following around the green fairy Fiola. So those two are probably the most important things about the fight. On top of that, he does a bunch of other attacks that you have to dodge. And then at 40% health, he enrages, and all of his attacks become more fearsome. Cake just spanked J2 like I have never seen. That was an incredible J2 fight. And Cake finishes out the run with a 40:05 on the clock. Almost a sub 40 race time. That, I think, is actually the new fastest time that we've seen in a fight, I want to say. Okay, so now Ziggy is on to his J2 fight. This is super, super exciting. Absolutely just wonderful fight. Yeah, a 40:05 without even getting Myogi 2 skip. He died on Veil 2 skip, I want to say, or he got the heart on Veil 2 skip. That's what it was. Definitely, like, we saw some things that Cake kind of screwed up on that run. Still turned in a 40:05. That is just insane. Ooh, Ziggy actually went into the... So when Jewel goes down and does that, you know, he says the everybody's favorite quote, he does a big scream attack that will kill you almost in one shot, but it actually just drains your health very, very, very fast. And in order to be safe from it, you need to go into Ira's shield. And you might... Ziggy went into the shield just too late there and ended up losing a big chunk of his health. And there we are. Oh, he said it! J2 said it! On top of that, every once in a while, J2, he goes up into the air, and when that happens, he spawns kind of a bunch of meatballs around the screen that you have to kind of platform around just like this, while you get over to the ice trap that Amethyst makes, and then you need to... Oh, that was really close! You need to jump down with just the right timing in order to trap him in the ice attack, and that gets you some extra damage in. It's a good idea to try to do it when you will also get him into enrage health, because if you don't enrage Jaul at just the right time, he tends to freak out and do attacks that are really hard to dodge or just weird. And one way that is to enrage him at just the right time is to do it during the ice freeze attack. All right, Ziggy takes down Jaul as well, a 42:49, which is just an absolutely insanely excellent race time. Like, wait a second. Can you mash buttons to get through the credits faster? I didn't know that. All right, this just in. Apparently, you can hit buttons to get through the credits faster. That's crazy. I didn't even know.
You might even be able to hold them down.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. Hello, Cake. So in the call, we have Cake here, the winner, who just turned in the 40:05. I don't know what your in-game time was, but it was definitely sub 40.
Yeah, it was a low 39. I think it was like 39:08 or something.
That's excellent, because we saw you missed a couple strats, but that is still like, man, the rest of your run was solid to still get that time. So how's about it? What do you remember that happened?
I just remember Veil 2 going really badly.
I remember you picking up the heart in Veil 2.
And I had several saves in the run where I had to go back and like or I died like at the very end of the saves, and so I had to redo them, which were all kind of choky and bad. So, library. I remember library. I missed the skip the first try, and then
yeah, I forgot about that one.
And then I got sniped by the laser brute guy, like when I was doing the flutter thing to the right before you jump up twice.
Yeah.
And so I had to redo that save. So library was bad, and then I missed my Yogi 2 skip, so that was also bad.
Yeah, yeah. So you missed Miyogi 2 skip. Ziggy also did though, so that ended up being a wash.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
and then I messed up the the queen slug spawner room. Like,
oh, yep.
I took a death at the very end of that, so I had some very costly deaths in this
Cake,
run.
Solgren is in the chat, and he would like us all to know that those are called maggots and maggot queens.
Maggots and maggot queens. Well, the maggot queen and the maggots, they killed me.
Yeah,
So,
we had a discussion about how just like generally weird those enemies are. But yeah, that was still was a really, really great run. I mean, he didn't die to any bosses, and you know, there weren't too many platforming deaths. So that was just I think that was our fastest race so far. I might need Frozen to confirm that.
but don't watch that Azrael fight again. I think I red shielded her at least 5 times. That was absolutely terrible.
One of them was at just the right time though, because I was explaining red shield and then you did it, and it was like you were just helping out the commentary.
I'm glad I could help out. That's what I was trying to do. Hey Ziggy.
Hello,
Hey,
Ziggy.
man.
Hey, GG, man. I'm just happy. Well, but I put on ready in SRL and I went, okay, they're going to probably start the race at 5, but then they immediately started the race. So I got kind of surprised. That's kind of what happened at the start.
Yeah, the race started and you were right. Yeah, you were like practicing Acropolis or something, and we were all very confused.
Yeah, what I was doing is testing the lag with the recording on OBS, because Acropolis, the place that lags the most for me. I just wanted to be sure everything was fine, and then boom, race starts.
I was wondering what happened, because I was like looking at the chat. I saw a bunch of people be like, "Oh, this start is weird. Oh, what happened to Ziggy?" And I'm just like, "What?"
That's fine. I didn't lose because of that. I still ended up with a 41-23 in game time, so I really can't whine about that.
Good time.
Yeah, that's really good, dude.
Yeah, only Shark and Cake got faster times in the tournament so far. I was not very far from PB pace after Terravine, despite everything. So that was fun. After that, it went a little bit bad with Underworld, and I missed the M2 Enrage skip as well. And then the end game was average, although I golded Azrael. That was almost a perfect Azrael fight. No red shield and constant damage. Was amazing. But yeah, I mean, I didn't expect really to win against Cake, because when he decides to do a run, he can do a run. What was your in-game time this time, Cake?
I think it was 39:08.
Okay, so I just got a god run that was 39:16 that I was absolutely crazy about, and he just beat it in a race. So I don't think I had much of a chance there. But from what I've seen in the chat, I was ahead coming out of Amethyst, and that's still something.
How did your Veil 2 go?
Veil 2 was perfect, essentially.
It
was yeah, I saved 8 seconds on it, and it was about a second away from my gold. I got the Veil 2 skip first go, and I got the Cave skip first go as well.
Yeah, it was a crazy close race for a lot of it, and I mean, you put up a heck of a race, Ziggy. I would say that this might be like the combined times. This might have been the fastest race. Like both of you put together was probably the fastest race that we've seen so far. And
yeah, it's not far from 40 average, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So this was an absolutely excellent race. Definitely, I think it's in Swiss right now, but when the brackets come in, I think that you both are probably guaranteed a spot in there, I'd say.
That should be fun. By the way, when did I lose my lead? Was it the cutscene?
Oh yeah, you guys were both fighting Terravine at the same time. It was still really close for a lot of it, though, after that, I want to say. But yeah, you definitely lost a little bit of time on, I think it was the Terravine cutscene, right?
Yeah, that one's 15 seconds.
I saw, like, just reading the chat, I saw that me and Ziggy were close and he had taken the lead, and so I went full, like, I skipped every single save in the grotto that I could. I was like, I'm just gonna go for this bad. And
I got them all almost, except the red save before the long minecart, so that's probably where you caught up. I played a little bit safe.
Yeah, there was a section in the minecart part where you guys were perfectly synced, and it was I think it was going into the Terravine fight, actually. You guys were like basically just perfectly synced.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, so what is next?
I believe it's Cake. Cake is going to have a race on Shantae in the semifinals in what, about 40 minutes?
Yeah. It's gonna be a best of 3, and I'm probably gonna get wrecked. But I'm gonna do my best.
Well, if you can beat me, you can beat anyone.
We'll see.
My ego is a bit big.
Well, as far as Wings of V goes, we've got a race tomorrow at 9 Eastern. That'll be Fraslo versus Matrick. Saturday, we've got a couple morning races, 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Eastern. Is Red's Toad versus Omega Matt, and Canaris versus Rising Moon, respectively. And then on Sunday, you've got me versus Ilias at 5 p.m. Eastern. So stick around for V all weekend.
Sounds like a good weekend to me.
Gonna be watching that.
So thanks to Cake and Frozen and everyone else who's running this tournament, and thanks to Speed Gaming for hosting us. And thanks to you runners for putting on good races. Oops, I just botched the command, but Ziggy's got me. All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you, everyone.
See ya. Thanks. Thank you, Speed Gaming, as well.